Hey friends, welcome to the 10 Laws podcast with East Forest. I'm East Forested. How are you? Happy New Year. Hope you had a good holiday season as we're moving into the end of the year. This is like the last show of the year. And traditionally in the past, I think this is the third one of these I've done. I like to do something a little different. And we've done these AMAs before where it's kind of an Ask Me Anything and you guys send some questions in and then we use that as a solo cast. But, you know, now that my partner, Radha, has her own podcast, it's like, let's do another Radha Krishna Roundtable, but make it an AMA where we get to ask each other the questions and just see where that takes us. And so that's what we did. So this is a podcast with my dear, lovely partner, Radha, Marissa Radha Wepner. And if you don't know about her, she does a lot of cool things, including ketamine therapy. She's a life coach. She's a private yoga teacher, meditation teacher. She's at teacher trainings. She's got this amazing yoga book, like a nice 27-day for home practice for anybody. And she does a lot of this virtually, so check her out, marissaradha.com. But she's my sweetheart. So, you know, she's important to me, and we have these conversations all the time, and it's always fun to get to record them. So I think you'll enjoy it too. Just want to say thanks for everybody who subscribes. It makes a big difference. I love the support we get, and we are creeping up in the reviews on Apple Podcasts. So if you get a chance to give it the 5 stars, it's so easy to do, and it's one way to support the show. As in addition to those of you who have given written reviews, it means a lot. And thank you for sharing your clips or episodes you like on social media or with your friends or just telling them about it. But you can tag us at East Forest on Instagram and East Forest Music on Facebook, Twitter. It's the same on YouTube. Yeah, so we've been doing what people do, slowing down here and getting into the holidays. It's been good. Sometimes it's a hard time of year for me because I like doing things, and the world is like, get back to me when, you know, the New Year's passed, and I can respect that. But waiting's never been a strong suit for me. And also, you know, the holidays, they bring up grief for some of us. You know, I went through a divorce several years back now, and I feel much more I'm in balance with it, certainly, than at the beginning stages of that. But you can notice how certain milestones like this tend to bring up things that maybe, you know, frankly, I wasn't even always aware of in my mind. And I'm noticing it manifest sometimes as pain in my own body, or, you know, general anxiety or something. And it's been subtle, but sometimes too, just in the bigger scheme of things, it reminds me of like loss and really change and how everything in the universe changes. And then I start thinking about life in general. And for all of us who are middle-aged, you know, that's sort of the classic thought process. But at the end of the day, it fills me with a lot of gratitude for what is and an appreciation for what we've gone through this year and the many years and just collectively on this planet, you know, the stage that we're at. So we kind of get into that and these sorts of ideas in this conversation. The event on January 16th is still scheduled currently in Salt Lake City. We may have to shift venues, but we'll let you know ASAP. It might already be known out there if there's any new information by the time this podcast comes out. But thanks for getting tickets to that show at eastforest.org. And thank you for all the other support that you've given me, particularly this year, in a year when I wasn't able to get out there in person and see so many of your faces and interface with your hearts in person. I feel like you guys have really shown up as a community to support the ecosystem of East Forest and the work that I'm trying to put out that you're doing, and we're doing it together. And I have felt useful in our relationship, and I've really felt like you guys have been holding me up and, you know, using the tools, and we're in that conversation together. So thank you so much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'll continue to do my best in 2021 to do my work and amplify that out because I know probably whatever I'm going through, you guys are going through too in your own way at your own time. And I'll keep showing up if you do, okay? We'll keep walking that walk together. All right, my friends. Happy New Year. Let's get into this conversation with Radha Krishna Roundtable, last of the year. All right, here we are. End of the year. In the space between spaces of Christmas into the New Year. Folks will be hearing this around that time. And we thought it'd be fun to do a special podcast where, you know, what are the things you can do that's a little outside the normal routine in podcasts? So it's sort of like doing an AMA and Ask Me Anything, but instead of shifting the questions to the internet sphere, we pose them to each other as a mechanism of seeing what happens, what comes out of that. Right?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's, I mean, the listeners have the potential to get a great amount of insight because we know the things to ask each other.
Well, we'll see what kind of insight comes out of it. But,
we spend pretty much 24/7 together.
Well, I wrote down some various questions. And I don't know. Well, you wanted me to kick it off, or you want to kick it off?
Sure. Well, we could do the staring contest to see who goes first.
It's not much of an auditory, exciting thing to listen to.
Well, let's just say you just lost, so you get to ask me.
Okay. As the biggest loser, I will ask you, what frustrated you the most about 2020? And do you see that moving into 2021? It's sort of a two-parter. That's part one.
Okay. What frustrated me the most? Having to wear a mask.
Okay.
I mean, if I'm going to be really honest, having to wear a mask, and not just wearing a mask, right? Like actually wearing a mask is totally fine. But like all of the energy that goes into the discussion and the interplay and the social dilemma and the personal dilemma and the interpersonal dilemma.
The awkwardness
of saying? Wearing a mask, like the whole package of it, like that masks became a thing, let's say. And then there's divisions.
It was the hottest thing in 2020 by far. if anything wins, it's masks.
Masks win. And so that's not to say I was frustrated wearing a mask, but I was frustrated with all of the energy that went into the decisions of wearing a mask and not wearing a mask, which you would think would be pretty simple and straightforward, though it was.
You would think. I think this is a great opportunity to illuminate everyone into a quick story about the email I got about the show. Because it's about, you'd think.
Yeah.
You'd think when all this mask stuff came up, it's fairly straightforward.
He's talking about a show, his ceremony concert that's scheduled for Salt Lake City in January, so coming up in a few weeks. And it's required by the state, right, to wear a mask. It's a mask mandate by the state. And so we follow those guidelines to do that, just like I have in my business or now lack thereof, or going to the grocery store, or, you know, socially when gathering in certain places and containers. So let's just say it's a rule for the show coming up.
Yeah, it's also the law, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so someone wrote us this email. I'm tempted to actually read the actual email, but let's just summarize.
It was beautiful. And a little pause right here now too. You East Forest fans, when you send Cray emails or IG messages to East Forest, he shares them with me, and we take great delight in vibing in the emails
I don't
together.
see everything, but just to set it up. So the show on the 16th, currently January, Salt Lake City, someone had written an email that was sent to the general email, and essentially started, and it's a very long email.
Paragraphs and paragraphs.
Yeah, and frankly, fairly cogently written. Like, it wasn't like there weren't spelling errors and things like that. And so it's like, okay, someone's actually thought this through. And they're starting with, thank yous and gratitude. And I'm like, okay, yes, thank you. Wonderful. I'm glad everything's working for you and you appreciate this relationship we're in. And then saying, I was gifted 2 tickets to your event on the 16th in Salt Lake City. Okay. And then saying, and I work in healthcare, and I've been seeing the kind of choices people are making and how detrimental that can be to people's health. And I'm like, yeah, I can see where this email is going, and that's okay. Someone's got some concerns, I think, about it. And, but I can't in good conscience. And what do they say?
I can't in good conscience for my mind, body, spirit, health, and personal, like my personal sphere. Wear a mask. I can't wear a mask.
Therefore, I want a refund.
Instead of, I can't believe you're holding an event. How dare you?
They're like, I can't go to this because I would be required to wear a mask. And that goes against not just my personal spiritual values, but actually think it's dangerous for people. And I've seen that happen in my job in healthcare. That's the message, Darcy. So when you talk about masks and how that's been the theme of 2020, yeah. And there's apparently no clear-cut even path of like how we handle it. Sort of.
Right. So the second part to your question was, do I see it going into the future, that frustration? I would say.
Guess so.
Yeah. Yep, I would. And I guess we can leave that subject there.
I have a feeling it might come back with my questions here. Well, I'll just go right into part 2 then. So what is it that you're most hopeful about for 2021? That could be both personally and also collectively.
What am I most hopeful about for 2021? Well, I personally, with the closing of my studio and the new evolution of freedom in a way, it's freed me up to do a lot of new or different or just more in the same way of the things that I really love, like teaching and coaching and meditations and kirtan and study. I look forward to all of those pathways deepening and, finding more of a groove. And I'm hoping to maintain the energy of spacious abundance and slowing down. That's my greatest hope for myself and for all of us, is the energy of slowing down, which I've talked about many, many times. And it's still like number one, right up there at the top of my list. What am I hopeful for? Well,
could I ask you more about that? Because
Sure.
You said the other day, how did you describe it? That you feel like you've gotten to this place of sort of surfing a dream state, meaning like the energy of not doing too much feels like some kind of dreamy place for you that you like, and you're like, I want to stay in this place.
Yes, which I know is impossible, right? I know.
But the intention is totally possible.
Yes, and I've adhered to that intention. So that's saying no to things and not taking on too much and not overscheduling and noticing the energy of like rush, stress, panic, push, and pulling myself out of that, and also not wanting to inflict that energy onto others. So intentionally, as much as I can, holding this energy of spaciousness, time. The slower we go, the more time we have. And the faster we go, the less time we have, I've found. And I want to have as much time as possible. Yeah. And that requires going slowly. So with the release of my studio and less with the yoga teacher trainings, obviously less with traveling, right? Like before we would travel so much, and it was often like carry on to carry on, trip to trip, and that takes a big toll. And so
it feels like America got pushed into like the speed of either a second world country or just Italy, where everyone's just like, I want my thing on Thursday, and well, now it's going to be Tuesday, and it's like, oh man, I guess I just have to wait. Everything's just slowed down, like Amazon shipments, like the ability to get things expected as quickly as before, and not traveling.
Yeah,
and so it's created this state where I think for a lot of people, they're not desiring, myself included, to always or sometimes even feel that chicken with the head cut off energy.
Yeah. Yep. And, because of the pandemic in the beginning, when everything shifted so much and we really gave each other a lot of leeway for canceling, not having things happen as planned, having things change at the last minute, etc., carrying that leeway forward of things might not happen or things might change or things might shift. And so allowing each other to have that forgiveness around what it's actually basically is being in the present moment. Like, how much can I be present to what's here now, this moment, versus projecting forward into, I've got to get all these things done and this is going to happen then. I want to be as present here and now as possible.
COVID is, it is presencing. I think it stirs up things of remembering the past and what you miss, and it stirs up the future in all of our fears. But maybe the gift in it is that it illuminates then even more how those are these things in your head.
Yeah.
What you're missing and that what you're worried about. It is definitely a great illuminator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, totally. So I feel very blessed. I feel really fortunate to have been able to transition the way that I did from my work in the studio to my work with...
You landed on your feet in a big way, and I've said that to you, which is amazing and great.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's not just that like you kind of figured out the nuts and bolts of sort of hustling on your own fully, but you also seem to fall into a rhythm with it that while missing community and the things that came with a yoga studio day to day, that's been pretty impressive.
Well, thank you. And I feel like I was just thinking about this in the shower this morning, like the anti-hustle. Like, I don't really feel like I've been hustling. I feel like I've been working, but things come to me. But I don't want to be out there like...
I just call it the hustle.
I know. I don't want to... But I was just thinking about the word hustle this morning. Like, I don't want to feel like all of my passions have to become hustle side projects too. I want to enjoy things just for the sake of enjoying it in the privacy of my own moments or my own home without thinking, how can I also now monetize this thing that I love?
Make it grow.
Yeah, or make it grow or get more likes
it.
or quantify it. I just, and it ties into the slowing down and doing less, not hustling, not quantifying, not selling, really being present. When the opportunity comes to share things, for sure I will and do all the time. But it's more like, for example, I was sitting at the computer just now doing work and catching up on things. And I was like, oh yeah, I should make a post about life coaching. And, you know, I've got a spot for a few more clients for 2021. Now would be a good time to do it. And I did it in that moment because I thought of it in that moment and I just did it, versus a week ago having a marketing plan of like, I got to make that post to get more clients. I didn't even think of it until an hour ago.
I have this conundrum in my head about whether I would be east foresting better if I embodied that energy in my life of essentially letting go of like any thoughts of trying to grow in a quantifiable way, and not talking about internal growth, but external growth. But then I'm like, or is it the reverse, where, because then in essence, perhaps my output of what I give to music would be quite a bit less, or maybe I play fewer shows,
when you
if
say
any.
the reverse, what does that mean? I didn't quite understand the reverse.
Well, I'm just trying to say, like, which is really more valuable
Trying
for me.
to grow or not trying to grow? Simplified?
Yeah, and I think it's a both and is where I come to. It isn't one or the other. But I just say like the role that the hustle plays for me, and
is what?
It's like a fire, you know. It's an energy to do things,
okay,
and to output, and then it's also can be an energy you can get lost in.
Yes.
And so, but I don't want to say if I let go of the hustle, that I think it's kind of fun. I purposely say the word because it's playful.
Yeah.
And I just said yesterday to this guy I was talking to, who's like a money guy, and it's like, listen, man, basically he's trying to wrap his head around my life. And he's just describing my jobs. And I was like, look, man, I've basically just been hustling since I got out of school, avoiding a 9-to-5. And that makes sense to me.
I guess the question that's in there is like, when is enough enough? Like, when do you feel like really satisfied with the life that you've created? And
that's my thing. I'm saying there is no enough. There's never a destination. Like creative, I like the expression of creative energy, and there will never be a time I don't like that.
I'm not saying then you wouldn't produce anything. I'm saying the internal feeling is like, I feel really good and satisfied in this moment, and you continue to produce because it's what you love to do.
I do feel that. I do. And we were watching this is exactly what we were talking about the other night. We watched the movie Soul on Disney Plus, which I deeply enjoyed. I believe you did as well.
Yeah, and the kids loved it.
Fantastic music, great story, well done, and in my opinion, deeply influenced by the book Journey of Souls. And this idea of there is nothing else besides the quiescence, the quietude, the perfection that you feel in those moments of spontaneous, let's call it meditation, all day long, hopefully.
Those ordinary moments of absorption with the beauty of life as it is.
When you take a particular deep breath while you're even washing the dishes and somehow everything just goes,
yeah.
That, of course, maybe it's the more beautiful moments, in orgasm or seeing a rainbow in the perfect way or the way the wind's going through the trees and the leaves. It's all like, those moments of infiniteness. That's it. I mean, and I don't mean in a pejorative way. I mean, that's the just this.
Yes.
And so all the other stuff, external successes and power you might have attained from your practice. You could be the best axe chopper now in the world or whatever it is, the best mom. That's important too, but it's not, as they would say in the movie, your purpose.
Well, yeah. Can I reflect to you for a moment in the vein of this and in 2022 for you, 2020, prior, knowing you in your worlds with like growing, tours, albums, collaboration, there was this like, we got to get the next thing planned. For example, we got to get the tour in the UK planned.
There was pressure for a timeline.
And then now, because in 2020, all the timelines went away, all the touring went away, you have embraced more this sense of that energy is gone. And it might be gone because you can't plan a tour right now, or it might be gone because you also feel a sense of grounded contentment with where things are at and how they're unfolding as they unfold.
Is that a question?
Yes. And a reflection.
I think so. It was a big help to not be able to do those things. It's not even a choice. And the fact that everyone couldn't do it made it easy.
Yeah.
Easy in the sense that like there's nothing to fight there. I really felt like we're all in it together. How much worse does it feel if you're the only one who can't do that for some reason? Then you're like, well, everyone's just leaving me behind kind of vibe. And I definitely was hustling on a pretty extreme scale for the last my whole life, pretty much.
Yes, since you were 20, since you got out of college.
I'm still hustling, but it's been simplified because the things I'm hustling on are here in the studio at home. It's about just creating music, which goes at the pace it goes at. You know what I'm saying? The hustle's been less multitasking in a way.
Would you say that musicians too also feel the same?
Yeah, a lot of my friends that I've talked to that are professional musicians, every single one of them has maybe been scared about, oh my God, about lost revenue, but all of them have really enjoyed being off the treadmill of either I'm on tour or we're planning for the next tour. It's an incredible tax on your body and your energy and your mind. I mean, it is so difficult. It can be very rewarding in the moments often of performance, but 98% of it is traveling or waiting or looking for food that's not really that good, or logistics, or whatever, man. And like someone the other day, it was the first email I'd had in months about coming to do an event. And it was all the way across the country. And I haven't done that in so long. I haven't flown. We were serious, like, airline points people with our statuses and whatever medallions and like the lounge this. And like, I haven't flown in so long that when I realized, okay, this event would require packing, the rehearsing, of course, but the plane ride, then the trip, and the finding a place to stay, and then overnight. And
what was your travel fee in your mind?
Yeah, my mind is like, what I was charging before, it doesn't seem worth it. Even though the money is like really valuable, and I get all that, and I very much value what I miss this year was connecting with people in that way, like that energetic exchange of a live performance is very nourishing, and I didn't realize how much. So
Yes.
there is a big payoff, and it feeds you.
Totally. Like teaching. Like our
All that
retreats,
stuff
all
we
of
do
our
in
events.
groups, or just even just one-on-one with people, that exchange of energy, this is pointedly showing us the value of it. Anyway, I don't know, to answer your question, it's nice to be able to take a breath and rebalance and not have to rush into any decisions. It's like, oh, I can trust in a different way of being and maybe bring things in, I would hope, in a more mindful way. That's my way, as opposed to the way I think it needs to be done.
Exactly. Well, to tie into that, what would your hope for 2021 be? I had the same question for you.
Collectively or personally?
Both.
Collectively, that we can or will have and continue to use this experience to burn through the way we're putting our hands over our eyes, over our ears, and coming into recognition of our own personal truths and letting that be more than motivation enough to make decisions that we can move towards a collective future and individual futures that recognize our lack of separateness and the other and our connectedness and our trust that like everything we want and need is already here. We just need to like let go of a lot of things.
So beautifully said.
And that's just my hope, because like, my God, the pain and the suffering that's come out of this pandemic, whatever you think of it, okay, that's undeniable. From death to poverty to stress alone, to breakups, to suicides, to lost jobs, to all the things, please let that be worth something. Please don't squander the suffering that's gone into all of us being pushed into choice. And you can choose to keep doing what you were doing, but this is just only you can be honest to say, how can I be better for me? And where are the things, what can I let go of that's going to allow me to be a better person? And like the movie Soul, it's like that may just be you smiling more to other people. It's not about what you do, and it could be related to that, but it's probably more about some internal energy or the way you talk to yourself or how much stuff you put on your plate. And it may or not, in your mind, affect the outside world, but I would contend it will.
Well, it does.
In the long term,
it does affect
especially.
The outside world. It does. Yeah. Well, how about personally for yourself?
What am I most hopeful about personally?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just similar that I can hold on to some of the truths and strength, however small that is, to move into the new year and trust. To trust.
So trust is your
I've always trusted, but I just want more. Is there more leaning into like that I'm held and guided and the process is perfect.
Yeah.
And I don't have to rush it.
I was just talking with a client yesterday about, she was saying how she worries a lot. And she
life coaching client?
Yeah, life coaching client. And she wanted help with worrying. And we talked all about that and unpacked it, but then really got down to trust. When you're trusting, you're not worrying.
Yeah. And some people call it faith. And I don't consider it a kind of blind faith. I don't know. It's a very personal thing, what that feels like to you.
I guess my question for you is, will you worry less if you're trusting more?
Well, look, you know that I want to, right? You know that I don't enjoy worrying. Like it's more, it feels like a burden to me, and it feels like something that I've carried forth from my childhood that I was taught.
To worry.
Hands down. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I have to, I don't want to just push stuff away. So I'm like, worrying is actually a valuable skill it's just trying to look out for me and other people.
Planning.
That's another way of looking at it. And so it's not all bad. It's like, okay, so it's a muscle. I just don't want to use that muscle too much, And so I think that goes, I'm going to say yes. Yes, I'm always easing into worrying less. But this year was tough because it made me worry about things that I didn't think I'd be worrying about. I mean, I think for a lot beyond just like you might worry about your life and your career, but it's like talking about like all these situations we never consider, like other people's behavior in your pod, how that affects your own health. It's like, I never had to deal with that before.
No.
None of us did. It's crazy.
Before
and like,
the pandemic,
try
you didn't
controlling
really...
a 17-year-old and how she hangs out with her friends. Like,
that's what I was just going to say.
You go into madness. And I am teetering on like that lack of control is maddening to me. But I have to be really honest with myself about whatever I think of it, how much I can actually control.
Right. And what you can control is how much it stresses you out.
I think you can witness it and choose to aim for something, but I don't know. Some of this, I feel it in my body. It doesn't even feel like it's in my conscious mind, like the way certain worries manifest in my body. And,
I know.
And I'm just like, it feels literally like two different minds. Like, I'm like, well, I'm thinking one thing, but my body's thinking another, clearly through pain it's giving me or whatever.
Uh-huh. And
if anything, that teaches me a lot about stress overall and how horrible that can be for our bodies. And it worries me deeply, deeply. I know there's a little bit of a catch-22 there. But all of us, like going through what we go through, I guess it's part of the human experience. But boy, we've had a lot of cortisol running through the veins.
We sure have.
The human race.
We sure have. And, that just makes me think of you and the work you do as an antidote for that.
All right. Next question. Your turn?
You're going to ask me? Sure.
No. I mean, I started by asking you off my list. Why don't you ask something?
On my list was, what was your hope for 2021? I just asked you that.
Okay. All right. So I'll go back to me. What was your biggest blind spot in 2020? And what do you think was the collective biggest blind spot in 2020?
Well, what I think first is my blind spot's what I'm not aware of. So it's hard for me to know what my blind spot is. Like maybe I'm not even aware of it yet. I think my biggest blind spot I'm not aware of because it's in my blind spot. Because could
dig
you
deeper? I'm just saying, like, there's got to be some things.
No, I was going to ask, like, can you help me tease it out? Like, what would you maybe suggest is my biggest blind spot?
It's like looking back on the year. Are there avenues you went down? You're like, whoa, I didn't realize I was lost a bit until later. Or, like for me, there was some serious stress in the early parts of the pandemic initially, and I feel it very differently now. It's just a different flavor. So I look at that like, okay, I was definitely feeling overwhelmed. And I was also feeling like there's a lot of catastrophizing there and feeling out of control. And I was,
So for you, that was a blind spot in the beginning.
You could look at it that way.
Or you could perhaps just phrase it like you've gotten better with dealing with that.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be in QAnon, at the beginning of the year. I'm kidding. That was my blind spot.
That you weren't in it.
I started it. Yeah, I'm Q.
Stop it.
Spoiler alert.
All of that is not true.
No, not at all. But that's kind of what this year has been an amazing year for that. Just like crazy. I don't want to seem crazy. I'm just going to say like wild ideas, identities that people take on and go deeper with. And if anything, I've been trying to loosen up my sense of identity and not be like, it's more like, this is who I am or what I believe. More like, who I am is saying like, I don't want to be us versus them all the time.
Yeah.
Like, how do I hold that energy and be thinking in my mind, there's all this judgment of like, that's a crazy idea. Like the person who wrote me about the mask, right? I vehemently disagree with that. But I also have to be like, how do I not then just relegate it to like, well, there's me and there's them kind of idea.
It doesn't have to be an either or. I think it's just a spectrum, and you can still hold people with compassion wherever they are, because whoever wrote you, like that's actually her truth. Like that's so true for her. She
really wanted a refund, which is not my control, by the way. For
you
everyone
don't
out there.
write an artist for a refund.
It's not even technically my event. It's the promoter is putting this on.
Exactly. I'm just saying too. That's not how you typically goes. If I go to see, Jack
you
Johnson,
haven't seen a show in a while.
I'm not going to go write Jack Johnson and ask him for a refund.
Hey, Jack. Didn't like the show.
But my blind spot.
Wait, can we just sidebar here of all the greatest things? It's like I did have someone buy a CD, I kid you not, and ask for $7 of the 10 back because they only like 3 of the songs.
I remember that
I kid you not, they actually... No, totally serious. So like, I thought this would be better. I do like 3 of the songs. So could I please have a refund for $7? I think that's fair. Or someone offered...
Or it's like eating half of your dinner when you go out to dinner and you're like, I didn't want
70% actually. Yeah.
70%.
I'd like $3 back. No, someone asked me to play a show before the pandemic, or maybe a year or two ago. And they were like, hey, I'm a big fan, and blah, blah, blah. And again, it's like anytime someone's writing you directly, when it says right there for booking, agents,
there's a different email.
Agents are real people. They're good people. They just help you do it. And they're like, no, I don't want to talk to an agent or a manager or anybody. I just want to talk to artists so I can do this. And then they're like, yeah, big fan. It's my wife's birthday. I'd like to come play. And I'm like, tell me more, give me the basics. And then I'm like, look, here's the range, what it could cost, and let me know if this is in your window. And the person wrote back laughing like, ha, ha, ha. I don't know who you think you are. I was planning on giving you, I think it was like $150 and half a gallon of maple syrup because it was up there in that neck of the woods. So I thought about it. If it was a full gallon of maple syrup that I had to take home on a plane with all my gear, he would have had me. But
he does love maple syrup.
Half a gallon plus $150 to fly across the country and play his wife's birthday.
It didn't happen.
No, but that's the funny things that happen. So I'm hopeful that we'll have some more fun messages in the future.
We really, really enjoy them. Yeah. But I'm trying to think of my blind spots still, sweetheart.
Yeah.
And
how about blind E-ish spots? Doesn't have to say it was like this big blind spot. Just things that looking back that you're like, maybe just roads you went down energetically or not.
Well, I think that I guess I can answer in a broader sense that for many of us, myself included, this year provided an opportunity to recognize blind spots around race and privilege, right?
Yeah.
So that was one of the major themes of 2020. And again, inherently in blind spots, you don't see them, but trying to see and think about and consider where those potentially are for me versus like the whole immediate, well, I'm not racist kind of response.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, where might it be showing up in subtle ways that I just...
Or how we talked about this the other day, like, I think I thought less about how I could help actively. I always thought of myself as an ally, but I never thought about what it meant. Yeah, what that whole energy meant. And I have felt that I have seen a lot of change in the, whatever community you want to call it that I see out there.
Yeah.
That I'm glad to see. We can always do more, but it seems like a lot of people got the message like, hey, there's a lot you can do in amplifying voices, and I try to as best as I can with the podcast and with collaborations and so forth, and I try to strike that balance of like, what's flowing naturally and who's coming into my world. But also, like, what can I do actively? Like, I definitely pick up on things when I think of something or I see something I like. I'm like, oh, let me work to connect the dots here.
Yeah, I feel that's very true. And a lot of people have made great strides. And I would say in my own life, I feel like because I've become so isolated, it feels like I've had less opportunities to do more. Because I'm kind of doing a lot less in a sense. Right.
And none of us are connecting in groups or things that you normally would cross paths.
But the intention is there and the awareness of it is there and the opportunities are being looked for. But I just feel like in many ways, besides the regular like donating money, which I continue to do,
Maybe I could switch the question. This is good. Like,
okay.
What do you think is more like the biggest blind spot in the wellness spiritual community in 2020 and how that relates to 2021? Because we have talked about this a lot. So we don't have to name anybody. It's more just like what we're seeing is like, because we think about it clearly when we think about privilege, race, and people have talked about that in the wellness industry.
Yeah.
But we also, this kind of dovetails into like that show Conspiracies, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And that whole notion of the sort of, how I've termed it, sharpening the blade in the spiritual world.
Well, that's a big topic, and everyone has blind spots, and everyone has room to grow, and there can easily become like an insular bubble that people get into, and when you're on the spiritual path, for sure, there's all kinds of spiritual bypassing, which would mean, personal, real life, tangible, actual problems or conflicts, blowing them out into like oneness, non-duality, everything happens for a reason type of things, which is true on one hand, but also not true on the other hand. So you have to really be able to contain this idea of paradox. And a lot of folks in the wellness world, spiritual, in quotes, world, can get pulled into things like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Delusion?
Conspiracies. Into conspiracies. I was thinking spirituality, but I'm like, that's not it. My words are getting mixed up. Can get pulled into conspiracies because they tend to inherently want to think outside of the box, which is a good thing. Like thinking outside of the program
question
is
reality.
The journey
Question everything.
that we're on. We have to be able to question reality. And I feel like it's somewhat safer to look into conspiracies before, like when you and I were more into it in our like teens and 20s than it is now, because of the way information is disseminated, and it feels like it's so polarizing too. And that energy that you spoke of before, the us versus them, is insidious and deep and toxic.
It never ends.
It never ends.
Yeah.
And so personally, my internal barometer when looking into something does this give me a feeling of separation or us versus them? Where in the spiritual conspirituality side of things, it can be the finger pointing to the other side of like, they're wrong. They've got a hidden agenda. They're trying to take away your powers. You have to watch out for them. That type of energy is a red flag for me. So I steer clear of that, but you can easily get sucked into it, especially when it's true we can't trust our government. I feel it's true.
I think that statement in itself is too black and white. There are aspects you certainly can. I think there are aspects you can.
There are aspects you can, and I don't. When I say you can't trust, I'm saying, do I feel like my government is telling me the truth about everything all of the time? No. Do I think that there's truths that the government keeps from the collective? Yeah, I do.
It's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that we do have this whole hierarchy of it, but it's so vast and there's so many systems to it that, like the U.S. mail has problems, but I kind of feel like I don't feel like there's some fuckery happening.
When he says mail, he doesn't mean white mail.
No, like the postal service. It's like, or the way that the way it trickles down to like the way voting was a fraud for perhaps 50 to 70 million people right now are believing that something was truly fraudulent or stolen, where another side, the extreme opposite is the feeling. That's sort of a symptom of something eroding where, like, I mean, it never ends, the manifestation of that feeling of lack of trust, because, like, you have to kind of choose. You'll never know anything for sure. So it's sort of, you have to just kind of like, I'm going to believe certain things at this moment and not others. And you recognize that's just a choice and something you're holding. But some things I think it's an easier leap than others. Like some things, like if they do a hand recount of paper ballots 2 or 3 times, it's like, look, most likely that's fairly accurate, right? As opposed to the alternatives of tens of thousands of fraudulent, fake, actual ballots.
I trust in our election process. That's one thing that I feel like.
But I don't
what's
trust
done,
the money in it and stuff. You know,
yes,
like all the
exactly.
I mean, there's a huge problem.
Well, that again is the containing of the paradox, where it's like some of it's good and some of it's bad, but that's inherent in the nature of reality for every single thing. And so again, like you were saying, you have to choose, knowing that you can't know everything. Where does the rabbit hole stop for you?
And how are some of those rabbit hole, the further you go down, is an excuse for not dealing with the way things are.
Yes.
It's because sometimes it just is messy, and unfortunately there's truths on both. It's just not great, and it is messed up, but it's then you can't then just say like, well, then the whole thing is against me. It's like,
you know, you're making me think of this moment that I had this summer with Benji, who's the 7-year-old in the house. No, he's not
He's
7.
9,
the 9-year-old in the
yeah.
house. The 9-year-old in the house. And I was encouraging him all summer to bike around the neighborhood, like basically get out of the house and get off the screen.
Yeah.
And he was biking. It's one of his first big bike rides down the streets, and he saw a garage sale sign, and he came back and he's like, Mom, come to this garage sale with me. I'm like,
it's crack for you.
Okay. Yeah. You got it, babe. Biking on a sunny day with my sweetheart to a garage sale sounds good. And it ended up being way longer than he had thought that it was. So we biked all the way to this place. And it turns out it's this old home that was owned by a man for probably like 50 years. It was in his life, and he had passed away, and his sons were there at the estate sale. And they were... what's the politically correct term that I could say? They were like my kin down
salt
in the south of Florida. They were salt of the earth. They were hunters. They were fishermen. Yeah. They were Trump supporters. Mm-hmm. They were, you know, different than the folks that I interact with on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And I loved the experience of one, going into this home, right? Estate sales, you get to go inside. And the two sons were there, and one of the wives, and they were so sweet and so loving and so kind and so helpful and so generous with all the things that they were selling. And just to say, I had to have a moment where it was like across the fence, and just to be with these two sons who had lost their father in this moment that for them, they were still really sad and grieving, and getting to talk to them about their father and like look them in the eye and listen and share. And just feel this deep human connection to, if you were to zoom out and go to like Fox News and you see these guys on that screen, they would feel like other, different, bad, scary. But when you see them face to face, they're just regular humans too.
Sure.
Trying to do their best and live their best, and who have super generous, open hearts as well. Mm-hmm. Everybody, I think, or many people, have bigger hearts than we give them credit for.
Well, they all have it. It's just how much they can access it.
Yeah.
And it's sort of
and the
like...
barriers to access.
Yeah.
And why those are there.
Which are real. Everyone is on a spiritual journey. It's not like certain people are and certain people aren't.
Yeah.
Everyone is. It's just how much they're basically consciously identified with that process and how important it is to them. But we're all on it. It doesn't matter really how you are exercising your life. You're in it whether you like it or not, in a sense. And that's just my viewpoint of like saying that it all matters. I believe
it all matters. Your
choices matter. Like they really do.
Interactions with, you know, salt of the earth folks like that can sometimes feel better than the cliquey interactions that you get with those in the wellness world that feel so judgmental.
You mean like when you're talking to someone they're creating more of that feeling of us versus them, saying like we're in a camp and someone else is in a camp?
Do you have the right clothes? Do you have the right look? Do you have the right water bottle? Do you have the right crystal?
I'm not that guy.
No, you're not at all. That's one of the things I love about you. You're not at all.
No, I'm in my own bubble.
I hope I don't come across that way either. But who knows?
No,
that could be one of my blind spots.
All right. Well, I think it's maybe your turn.
Okay.
I'll get a few more in here before we...
Here is the question for you. What advice would you give 30-year-old Trevor?
I don't know who that is.
It's Baby Krishna.
Baby Krishna. 30-year-old. Now I feel old. I'm like, that's an old person. What advice? I think I would say keep working hard. I wouldn't say any of that like do less or anything like that. But it'd be more
Well, where's 30-year-old Trevor at this moment in time? What was
30.
he doing?
I think I was in New York City and about to leave New York City.
Okay.
And I think I was really just starting to pop off and like, wait a minute. And everything was just really starting to begin. It felt like the beginning of a new sense of self. There sort of was before that and after that.
Okay.
And for those who have been listeners, I'm speaking directly to the story I've told many times of when I took the mushrooms with my first education of the Individual Soul album and how I felt like a changed man. Or becoming a man, really.
Well, how would
Part
you,
one.
if you could go back in time and inspire a 30-year-old Trevor, what would you say?
It's like okay to be joyful or no, because I knew I wanted to be joyful. I think I would have just told myself,
Are you saying that you weren't that joyful then?
sure, there are moments. I just say it's all good. It's like all the different things. It's okay. It's okay. Just that kind of feeling held a bit more.
You give him a big hug?
A big hug that kind of fathered the energy of like, man, it is so okay. Everything you will do and the mistakes and the triumphs, it's all cool. Just know that. Like, go play. Go do what you can, and it's all fantastic.
What would you say to 42-year-old Krishna?
This feels like a trick. I guess the same thing,
Which is, what did I just hear you say?
that it's okay and everything you will do, the things you might deem mistakes or successes, that it's all just great and they're all on a scale of perfection. So it's like, just go play and enjoy it all because it's all perfect. I guess. All right, you tricked me.
That wasn't a trick.
You sly one. Is that it, or is that a
I have another
part
question.
one-er? Okay.
Well, the part 2 was what would you ask 42-year-old, which I didn't have written down. That just came up as
you
we were
conveniently
talking.
did not ask that till second part. That's very smart of you.
Are you feeling guarded in this moment?
No. Go ahead. Do you have another one?
What was your biggest career success of 2020?
What a strange year. It wouldn't be the things like external as much. This year has been seismic for the way I work and who I work with and all the things. I mean, so there's all the obvious things that changed. And then...
What's your biggest career success of 2020? Number 1.
I think being more empowered.
Feeling more empowered.
Yeah. I left my management company at the time, right when the pandemic hit. Same weekend, we parted ways after 3.5 years. And so I started creating some new relationships and connections and team members. And I think I put myself, like I used to be way back in the day, more at the center of my own choices. And at first that was really scary, and it still is in certain ways, but the success has been that I felt more empowered because by default it was just sort of me. And I was like, oh. And over time though, I'm like, oh, I enjoy being intimately involved with this stuff and sort of being the CEO of myself.
Which you always were.
Right, but I had intentionally, turned it over in certain ways. And I'm just saying, like, I could work now, I think, a little differently. And there's some things I've learned there that I think will behoove it, just me enjoying it more.
Yeah.
And I think being more successful personally in that way, because I think it'll just work better.
Because you're enjoying it more.
Well, and I know like how I want to trust and also how I want to direct my own life. And
also the energy that you want to interact with.
Yes. That's really important. It's kind of everything really, because the rest of it's the what you do, but it's not the how you do it. And the how you do it's kind of everything, right? It's going back to like all that is just this. So if you're not really feeling that so great, be like, yeah, but we're going to get this awesome thing. It's like the thing's irrelevant.
The means don't justify the ends.
It's almost like there is no ends, really. They're just things, and the means is the show.
Exactly.
So how do you want to do the show? And I do have choice, as we all do. Like, who do we want to surround ourselves with? At least in that sense, I feel very privileged to be able to. I'm not forced to work with so-and-so or such company, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got to work with some great people this year.
I mean, half a gallon of maple syrup, you know, that's my choice. Not quite enough.
When I think of a half a gallon of maple syrup, the picture in my mind is a gallon that's half full. And I love that it's a used bottle.
Yeah, like it's like a Trader Joe's bottle of
it's half of it's in there.
Yeah. I am really tempted to taste it though. I'm just curious. Like, is it really good? Because you know me, I'm big into maple syrup.
He uses maple syrup
the joke
every
really
day.
is that like I love using maple syrup as a sweetener in things, cooking,
everything.
Yeah,
it's your go-to.
Yeah.
So they were on the right track.
Is it grade B? I prefer it is. You know, we don't know. We'll never know. Sadly.
Do you have any more questions for me?
Yeah, this is a sort of an easy, fun one. What was some of your favorite music discoveries in 2020?
Oh boy,
you're not any longer the DJ radio host of terrestrial radio that you were, in which you were playing new music. So then you were really on top of it. But I feel like it doesn't have to be new things, just things you were jamming on throughout the year.
Oh, goodness gracious! You know, that's sadly this question makes me sad. This question makes me
it's a double negative,
really,
so it makes you happy.
Because I was a radio DJ for a decade.
But you started your podcast instead.
And I was DJ Chakra Khan, and I would DJ events, you know, out all of the time.
DJ Chakra Khan.
Benji told me the other day I wasn't DJ Chakra Khan anymore because I haven't played any gigs.
Ouch.
I know. It's come from
Well, you're not a little boy
old.
anymore because you don't bike around the neighborhood. You just watch iPad screens.
So, and then Treefort Music Fest that I helped plan didn't happen either. And the gigs I did have for DJing, all of them didn't happen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like, and I haven't got to go to any shows besides the Magic Sword East Forest show.
Yeah, that one we did outdoors.
So it's been somewhat of a musicless year in many ways.
Let me help you out.
You got me.
Records.
You got me. He got me a vinyl record for Christmas of Salts.
Yeah,
Salts.
SAULT.
So we've been jamming on the Salt vinyl.
Not the new ones, the ones that you enjoy that we put on.
Well, we've put on all kinds of stuff. I mean, we were just jamming out on Glass Animals, but that's an old vinyl.
Sea and Cake. You're a big Sea and Cake fan.
I love the Sea and Cake.
Yeah,
we listen to that a lot. My vinyl collection is huge.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And I always try to ask you to put more on.
And I do.
It exists.
And I do. So, man, I guess that's a hope I have for myself for 2021 is to get back into the music because it's really fallen off while all these other things have taken over.
Yeah. And sometimes it was like when we were out performing and stuff, you meet and discover music at festivals or concerts.
Going to shows. Yeah. Going to shows was a really big thing, and that just hasn't happened.
Didn't we go to Jonesy and Alex?
That was November of 2019.
It was?
Yeah.
We just went.
That's how long ago it was.
Wow. Okay. I guess, right. So
But what's been happening for me, babe, if I can tell you, is I've been making my own music.
Yes.
I've taken singing lessons with Sheila, Bringy, and Brent. I've taken harmonium lessons with Sheila, Bringy, and Brent. I've taken harmonium lessons with Govindas and Radha, all of that virtually. And so just this morning, part of my routine is I got up and I played the harmonium and sang the Hanuman Chalisa, and I could do all of it with my eyes closed, just in the bhav. I could play the harmonium, changing chords, and singing all by myself.
Wow.
So
awesome.
I guess the music has turned internal versus external this year. I've been making so much more of my own music.
That's a huge shift.
Yeah.
That's
and I had
great.
a vision. Here's a hope for 2021. You and I are going to come out with a Hanuman Chalisa song together. You're going to do the music and I'll sing the chants.
It's okay. Wow.
So that's a 2021 hope for your beloved Radha over
All
here.
right, it's on the vision board.
It's on the vision board. Shalisa
Yeah.
for Radha Krishna.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what else for you? Anything else? Or any other things as we're closing out this year?
Well, as we're closing out this year, I want to just say how grateful I am to have you as my partner, because you've been stellar and awesome and a rock and a great yang to my yin in many, many ways. In the places that I do have blind spots that you perhaps see, you often hold me with a lot of compassion and forgiveness and allowance, and lift me up in lots of so many ways by holding the ship steady throughout all of it. And I'm really grateful to you for the work that you did for my meditation album, mixing and mastering and editing and music, of course.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm the luckiest yogini on the planet. Everyone wants East Forest music as a backdrop to their meditation. And
Well, they're great meditations, and thanks for all that. No, I feel that relationship is, I've always felt it's the crucible for spiritual development. It's one of the most fiery, best places to really get the kiln going. But I've been incredibly grateful that we could have that rock of partnership, especially during the COVIDian era as it continues, because my heart goes out to those who were truly alone. I think that would be rough, really rough. And so even though I can't control everybody and who they hang out with, I'm grateful for what I do get, which is partnership and like our community, a little micro community in a sense. So it's something I'm very grateful for. Yeah. All right. Any other last words for the year?
hang in there.
Is your podcast, it's been going over a year, or is this the first year?
I passed a year. It was a year in August.
So you're going to be like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be a year and a half.
How many episodes have you put out?
I want to say
What will this be?
this will be like episode 58 or 59. It's one of those things that I'm just holding lightly too. Like, I don't want to stress about putting out a podcast every week. So it might be a few weeks, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The podcast for me, I do it because I enjoy it.
Totally.
And I don't make any money off it. Matter of
Nope.
fact, it costs me probably, with all the different fees, certainly in the hundreds per year, I think. They
Then
take
all
about
the time.
Takes about a minimum of 4 hours, I'd say, a week, maybe 5.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And I wasn't so sure I'd keep it up at a weekly pace because I was like, I was like, I will if it does and it feels natural, and it has. But it is a fairly significant amount of energy, and I just enjoy it as a different avenue to explore the same show that I want to explore with the music, and to hopefully be amplifying other voices, not just my own. And I get to learn a lot, and I get to meet a lot of people. And if there's ways that you guys, at least for my show, I don't know if you want to invite this same sort of critique. I don't want to know what I'm not doing well out there, but if there's things you like and you're like, I'd love to see more of that,
Yeah.
let me know, because the podcast can go as, I hope it's part of a community, and it serves to us. And so if there's something you're digging, like this kind of thing, or more like the solos, or you like the dialogues with particular types of people, let me know at info@eastforest.org, or you could always, I guess, try and message us on social media.
And if it's a crazy funny one, we'll share it with each other because it brightens our day. Brightens our day. Thanks for having me on, and I'm looking forward to 2021. And please do reach out. You can find me at marissaradha.com, MARISSARADHA.com, and all the fun things that I do. Come join my world.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be even easier when we can start to gather the kind of things, and including our retreat that we're hopeful for the fall of 2021 in Utah. And hopefully we'll get back to Esalen and who knows where else. So it's been a transformative year for some of us, way more than others, but for all of us, we're definitely in it together on Spaceship Earth. And I think we're going to be continuing to walk through some murky ground. It's hard to walk on, but I know we can do it. And I know that if we can
are doing it,
trust one another, we'll realize how much help is out there. There's a lot of good people out there.
So many.
A lot. And a lot of them who are really good people. They might not be the majority, but it doesn't need to be. And everyone can get there.
I feel like it is the majority. I feel like the majority of people are really good people.
So we can do it. We can do it. So Happy New Year to everybody.
Yes.
And thanks for being part of the families. And we'll continue in 2021.
Blessings for spacious abundance. Love to all of you.
Ram Ram. Don't take any shit, but if you do, what do?
Hare Krishna.
Well, thanks so much, sweetheart, for coming on the show yet again. I'm sure she will be back many times. Check her out, marissarada.com. Check out her new meditation album, Guidance, that she mentioned. It's on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to music, and it does indeed feature East Forest music, and I put a couple tracks on there that I've never released before, and so it's a fun way to experience not only some new forms of meditation, but also a little bit of new East Forest music. Speaking of, what's this song playing in the background, Mr. Forrest? Well, this is a sneak peek of the new possible record that comes out in early 2021. I've been working on this record for a long time, and it's being mastered as we speak, and I just was going to play you a little sample in the background just to get you excited and give you a taste. It goes a few different places. I feel it definitely has a contemporary classical vibe, but there's some songs in there that feel like more like ambient orchestral pop, I suppose. But this is one of the ones that's more on the contemporary modern classical side, and I love it. It's called Undying. And I was helped with the string arrangements by Lorna Doone. And we had some great string players come in from the 208 Ensemble. And that's my piano that I got last year, my 102-year-old Baldwin that I've been refurbishing and literally putting toothpicks in to hold, the other day, to hold the damper pedal in, which worked. So who knew? Thanks, guys. So grateful again, so grateful to be in conversation together all around the world, to all my friends everywhere. I look forward to seeing you in person, but thanks for being part of this virtual heart community. Our connection will continue as we keep walking our walk. We don't take any shit. But if we do it with grace. Peace and love, friends. Happy New Year!